Parshas Balak, Tavshin Ayin Zayin. And you know, pretty much every year that we've had the shir on Parshas Balak, we've tried to somehow open up, to unlock what is a very, very perplexing and unusual episode in the Torah. Very, very difficult to understand the passages in this week's Parsha, what transpired with Bilam, Klal Yisrael, the whole story, the whole thing is very, and there's so many mefarshim, so many different explanations, and so many different ways to approach this Parsha. But what we do know, the facts were that Balak, we know, was clearly worried, and he was very, very concerned about Klal Yisrael. And he was looking for any way possible to bring Klal Yisrael down. And really, he wanted to bring Klal Yisrael down in Gashmias. He wanted to hurt Klal Yisrael. He wanted to bring their Gashmias level down. They were very successful, very promising people, a great nation. That clearly he wanted to affect, he wanted to bring down. But even more importantly, what he really wanted to do was bring down the lofty level of Ruchnius. Because as we know, and Balak certainly knew, that it's the Ruchnius level that actually creates and generates the very special character and the relationship, the fabric of the relationship that is unique to Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in order to affect that, in order to bring that down, Balak knew he had to somehow also affect the Ruchnius of Klal Yisrael. Because the Ruchnius of Klal Yisrael is what sets us apart from all the other nations of the world. So what does Balak do? He goes and he hires out Bilam, and he hires him to help with his plan. And as we know, the plan worked not according to the way they wanted, but according to the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted it. And rather than being able to curse Klal Yisrael, upon the commandment of Hashem, Bilam somehow begins singing the praises of Klal Yisrael. And there are a number of different ways in this parsha that Bilam begins to sing the praises of Klal Yisrael. And one of those ways is the following pasuk: Lo'hibit oven b'Yaakov, v'lo ra'a amal b'Yisrael. That Hashem does not see, so to speak, kaviyachol oven b'Yaakov. Hashem does not see the iniquities of Klal Yisrael. V'lo ra'a amal b'Yisrael. Hashem doesn't see the errors, the mistakes that we make, the mistakes that Klal Yisrael makes. Hashem does somehow, and we're going to try to understand what this means, but somehow, in some way, Hashem looks away from those things. So the Nesivos Shalom asks, on this pasuk, why do we use two things over here? Why do we say, Lo'hibit oven b'Yaakov, and then we continue and we say, V'lo ra'a amal b'Yisrael? Why not just say very simply, if we want to say that Hashem is in some way not looking at our Averos, say that Hashem is not looking at the Avonos, the Averos of Klal Yisrael. Why two different Lashonos? Why two different ways of expressing this in the pasuk? So the Nesivos Shalom tells us that this Oven, followed by Avon, is telling us the way an Aveira works. You know how an Aveira works? Aveira works, Chazal teach us in Pirkei Avos, Perek Dalet, that Aveira gereres Aveira. Just like mitzvah gereres mitzvah, Aveira gereres Aveira. One Aveira brings you to another Aveira. Why does that happen? Says Nesivos Shalom. How does that work? It happens because with each Aveira that a person does, what you're doing is you're building up the bad, so to speak, inside the person. And when you build up bad, the more bad that's inside a person, the more the person is inclined to sin. So you build up, and the more you build up, the more you are inclined to do an Aveira. So Aveira, Goreres Aveira, because you are becoming like a person that is more full of Aveiras. And we go after a person is led in the way that he is being led. In other words, if you do more mitzvahs, you become a mitzvah person. And if you do Aveiras, you're more inclined to do Aveiras. So really, what follows is a person does an Aveira, and as you do more Aveiras, you are going to end up leading you, it's going to end up leading you to another Aveira. It says in Nesivos Shalom, these are the two different things here in the Pasuk, Oven and Amal. Oven is a person does an Aveira. And then Amal is that now we're overburdened with these Aveiras, and we make more mistakes. One Aveira leads to another. So when the Pasuk says, Lahibit Oven v'Yakov, we know it is actually impossible for a human being, it is impossible for people to say that Hashem, so to speak, looks away. The Gemara tells us a person cannot say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a vatran. A person cannot ever say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no, this doesn't bother HaKadosh Baruch Hu. No, if you're not supposed to do it, you don't do it. So, we cannot say that Hashem looks away from the Aveiras. But what we could say, says Nesivos Shalom, is that when one Aveira already leads to another, then Hashem could give us the benefit of the doubt. Lo yibit oven b'Yakov. In that way, no, we can't say that Hashem doesn't look at Aveiras. It's also to say that. A person has to know that whatever you do, whatever a person does, Hashem is watching, and Hashem does not forget. Yom Kippur is another story. Tshuva is another story. But to say that Hashem forgets about it, that Hashem doesn't look, no. But to say that Hashem will give you the doubt and try to help you out once you did an Aveira, that you shouldn't do another Aveira, that's what the Pasuk could tell us. Lo yira'ah amo b'Yisrael. You know why? It says in Nesivos Shalom, why can't we say that Hashem will help you in that regard? The answer to that question is in the next words of the Pasuk. How does the Pasuk continue? Lo yibit oven b'Yakov, lo yira'ah amo b'Yisrael, Hashem elikav imai. What does that mean? How can we use those words to explain the principle that we just mentioned? Says in Nesivos Shalom a very, very beautiful, beautiful thing. And you know what he says? That when a Yid does an Aveira, a Yid does an Aveira, a Yid never does an Aveira with a complete heart. It just doesn't work that way. Even then, when we do an Aveira, we're thinking of Hashem. And how are we thinking of Hashem? Because inside, when a person does an Aveira, it is really, really hurting the person. And we're pained by the distance that it creates between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And yes, a person may have lost the battle, and it happens to everybody. You lose the battle with the Yetzer Hara. But you know, while you lose that battle, inside, it hurts so much. So we say, Lo yibit oven b'Yakov, v'lo yira'ah amo b'Yisrael. Why? Because even when they do an Aveira, Hashem elikav imai. Even when they're doing an Aveira, and right after they did an Aveira, it's hurting them so much. Hashem elikav imai. While he's doing the Aveira, it's not with the complete heart. It's hurting inside. The Aveira is never ever done with a content heart. And then Nesivos Shalom teaches us another very, very important lesson here. We know the Gemara tells us that the halacha is like Rabbi Meir, that bein kach ubein kach kruyim banim. That when Klal Yisrael is perfectly doing mitzvahs, and everything is good. Of course, we know that we're considered children. We have a shem of a ben. We are called a ben, a son of Klal Yisrael. But what happens when, unfortunately, we are doing Aveiros? Bein kach ubein kach kruyim banim. No matter what, even when we're doing Aveiros, we need to know that we are called a ben of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And sometimes that word ben, that son, is attached to another word, unfortunately. Sometimes we are called, as we will see in the Haftarah, in Now we're coming to the Bein HaMitzarim. This week on Tuesday is going to be Shavas B'Tammuz. Incidentally, this is our last Shabbos before the 3 weeks that we could bring Mashiach before we get to Shavas B'Tammuz, so we shouldn't have to fast this Tuesday. But sometimes we are called Banim Mashchisim. We are called children that became corrupt. Or the Navi calls us Banim Lo'emun Ba. We are called children that do not have emunah. But notice that it is always attached to the word ben still. We remain Banim. We never lose that name. We never lose that title of Banim, of children, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is always Hashem Elokav Imai. Even when we're doing Averis, even Bizman of the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, even though for over 1900 years we are in Golus, and we still, for the same reasons we lost the Beis HaMikdash, obviously we don't deserve to have the Beis HaMikdash rebuilt yet, but it hurts us. Still, Hashem Elokav Imai. And that is Vayhibet Aven. The Chet does not cause us to lose our title of Banim. Hashem does not allow the Aveira to go so far that we wouldn't be considered a child of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That idea of being children to Hashem never ever changes. The child, when a child doesn't listen to what a parent says, does the child lose the name of a child? Of course not. Once a child, you're always a child. There's no way you can ever change that. So too with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our status as children is a Metzias. It's a Metzias Nitzches. It is an eternal Metzias, something that we are never able to change. It can't change. So of course we can never say that Hashem overlooks the Averis. But in this regard, Hashem overlooks it enough, so to speak, that it doesn't cut the chain. Hashem tells us that I will never let that chain of you being my children, my sons, my daughters, I will never ever allow that to be changed. The result of the Chet is what the Pasuk is talking about in more than one way. Another pshat that Nesivos Shalom tells us at the end of this piece, something very interesting. Another thing that we can explain that Hashem is ready to, in some way, overlook what we do is because there is an idea of Midah Keneged Midah. And this, Nesivos Shalom talks about in a number of different places. You know, sometimes we daven to Hashem, we want something, and we don't always get what we think we want. We don't always get what we think is good for us. So how do we react? The way we are supposed to react is to say, Hashem, you know what's best for me. It doesn't seem perfect in my mind, but you know what? It's good. It's always good. Says in Nesivos Shalom, Midah Keneged Midah. You know when Hashem gives you more than other people, you know when Hashem gives you the benefit of the doubt, that Hashem doesn't take the full brunt of the Aveira that you do, is when you give Hashem the benefit of the doubt. When you stop and think for a second and you say, Hashem, you know what's good for me. It doesn't seem perfect to me. It doesn't seem right to me. But you know what, Hashem, I'm going to trust in you. Then Hashem turns to you and says, you know what, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, too. So we have three different explanations here in Lo'hibit Oven B'Yakov. And what beautiful lessons for us to know that we have so many opportunities and so many ways to take advantage of this. And especially as we said this week, with Shavas B'Tammuz coming, it's a time to reflect, first of all, because of the 3 weeks, a time to reflect on doing tshuva. We lost the Beis HaMikdash, Bein Adam L'Chaveroi, how we act to our fellow Yid, how we act to our friends. It's time to reflect and to think, and we have a lot of good lessons to learn from this pasuk in our parsha.